Hello everybody, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis with the final part of Codex Analysis Militarum Tempestus. Today is episode 3 and I'll be going over the formations as well as giving my final thoughts on the Codex as a whole. So the first thing I want to clear up is from episode 1 and that is orders. There was one order, I think it was called Close Assault Doctrine, and it gives your unit Crusader. Now, I thought Crusader was just god-awful. It was like adding D3 to your sweeping advances. But I had a comment on episode 1 suggesting that Crusader allows you to roll 2 dice for your run move and keep the highest. Now, if this is the case, then I actually see a tiny bit of value in Crusader. I'd probably still want Fleet because I believe that allows you to reroll your run move. I could be wrong on that. So, Crusader has its value, but I'd probably pick other orders over it. So, that's now an updated take on what I think about the Crusader order. It's better than I thought, but it's still not amazing. So, there are 2 formations to go over in this video. The Airborne Assault Formation and the Ground Assault Formation. Now, the rules concerning formations are rather simple. They are basically a detachment in and of themselves. So if they are not the if your warlord comes from here, you do not have objective secured and you cannot reroll your warlord trait because you do not use a combined arms detachment when you take a formation. If you want objective secured, you would have to take the formation alongside a combined arms detachment. Just something to bear in mind. You don't pay a cost up front for formations, or at least not in this codex. You simply add up the cost of all the units you're taking, and then that is the cost of the formation. So basically, you're paying absolutely nothing to fill in some restrictions and get some bonus rolls, which I cannot complain about. I mean, in Apocalypse, you have to pay extra to take these awesome formations, but not in this case. So, the Airborne Assault Formation obviously revolves around flyers. So it is composed of 1 Commissar, who can be upgraded to a Lord Commissar, 1 Tempestus Command Squad, 3 Tempestus Scion Squads, and 4 Valkyries. The Commissar must join 1 squad during deployment. So for me, I was sticking with a Scion Squad. No matter how large it is, it will still fit in the Valkyrie because it has a capacity of 12. In the Command Squad, you are not getting any leadership bonuses, and you have a risk of executing your Tempesta Prime, neither of which is a good thing. You're best off in Scion Squads where you can shoot random dudes if you need to, and you're getting +2 leadership in comparison to a normal dude, +1 in comparison to a sergeant. So they have 3 special rules. The first one is Air Cavalry. All infantry units in this formation begin the game embarked upon their Valkyries and therefore must be placed in reserve. This just basically stops you from deploying everything in the formation and then having 4 Valkyries in reserve to just come in and do whatever you like. You have to deploy your units inside the Valkyrie. So if you're taking this as your whole army is just this formation, because you can do that. Formation can just be your whole army. You do have to think it's got to come on turn 2, I believe, otherwise you immediately forfeit the game. However, there is a way to mitigate that, and I'll come on to that in a minute. Furthermore, if unit from this formation disembarks using grab, shoot, insertion, you can re-roll the scatter dice, meaning you are probably half as likely to need to take dangerous terrain tests, and you're a little bit more likely to go in the direction you want to go if you absolutely need to. This does, I believe, synergize also with grab, shoot commandos, meaning that you might have to re-roll the d6 as well rather than 2d6. So if you roll a scatter 5 inches and that's not good, you can re-roll and get a hit 12. I don't know. Just something to think about. You can re-roll, and it does synergize a little bit with grab, shoot commandos. Secure the area. On any turn in which a unit from this formation disembarks from a Valkyrie, even if this is using grab, shoot, insertion, it has the split fire special rule, and all ranged weapons have twin linked. That's really, really good. Split fire on Scions is great because you don't have to sacrifice all that Ep.3 firepower so your melter dude can kill a tank. You have split fire, so your las guns can just say, "Hi Marine Squad," bang, die, and you can even give them an order to make sure they get sniper or something like that, and your melter gunner can go, "Hello Mr. Tank, thank you very much," bang. Or plasma gunner, or actually they're the only guns really capable of hurting tanks. And you have twin linked. Twin linked is really, really good because you don't have a lot of shots in the first place. So you don't get to add more shots, you just get more value out of the ones you actually have. And again, with your specialist weapons, this is amazing. Twin link melters and twin link plasmas are great. Finally, strategic intervention. When making reserve rolls, make a single roll for the entire formation, which you can choose to re-roll. On a successful reserves roll, all the units in the formation arrive from reserve. So it's an all-in roll. So it's not like, okay, so I'm going to roll for my command squad's Valkyrie, then my first Scion squad, then my Scion squad with the Commissar, then the other Scion squad. No, you just roll once. On a 3+, everybody's in. And if you fail, you can re-roll, meaning that I believe in 1 in 9 games, this formation will not arrive on turn 2. So it's very unlikely that this formation will not show up, which is pretty important considering the fact that it costs roughly 900 points to field this formation. 4 Valkyries, 125 points each, 600. 3 Tempestus Scion squads at 70 points each, 210. Add that, that's 810. Command squad plus Commissar is roughly 90, so that's 900 points. Done. Before you've even spent a single point on an upgrade, you've spent roughly 900 points. I hope you're happy. Meaning that this formation either needs to be your entire army, or a very big allied detachment, or just part of a very big army in general. Because you can't afford 900 points off the table if you're playing a 1500 point game. That 600 points that's on the table is just going to get obliterated and you're on the back foot immediately. Plus, you're surrendering a lot of board control and board presence early on by running this formation, meaning you need stuff on the board to give that board presence early on to stop you just being steamrolled by assault armies. So bear that in mind if you're going to run this formation. It's very expensive and either needs to be your entire army or part of a very large army. One or the other. The second formation, the final formation, is the ground assault formation. It has one change in terms of composition from the airborne assault formation. All the Valkyries are removed and replaced with Taurox primes. This immediately cuts the cost of your formation by about 180 points. Or is it 160? I will just quickly check. By 180 points. Because a Valkyrie costs 125, a Taurox prime costs 80. Take 4 out and put 4 in, you've saved yourself 4 times 45 points, which is 180. Yes, I can do that maths in my head on the spot, I apologise. So it's 180 points saved immediately. And that's 180 points you could throw in upgrades. Be it maxing those Scion squads out to 10 men. Yes, you need to find another 30 points somewhere, but you can do that. Be it giving the command squad an extra special weapon. Be it upgrading to a Lord Commissar. And as with the Airborne formation, the Commissar must join one squad in this formation during deployment. Calculated Strike is the first special rule. All units in this formation must either be set up or placed in reserve. You cannot divide this formation's units between the two. So you might think one of the clever things you could do is say, okay, so I'll deploy my command squad and my first Scion squad with the Commissar, so I've got a nice solid base, and I'll keep 2 Scion squads back just in case things go pear-shaped. No. You have to deploy everything, or put everything in reserve. Fortunately, just like with the Airborne Assault formation, you only roll once for the whole formation, and you can re-roll it when it comes on from reserve. So again, only 1 in 9 times will this formation be late. Which is a good thing, considering it costs about 700 points-ish. So you can't afford that being off the board for ages. It's not as bad as the Airborne formation, but it's still bad. Mounted Battle Group. All the infantry units in this formation begin the game embarked upon their Taurox Prime transports. This is again to stop you doing something clever in deployment where you deploy all your guys as a battle line and then use the Taurox as distractionary units to rush up the board. No, you'd have to get out on turn 1 and then rush the Tauroxes up the board, meaning that you actually lose a movement phase basically for your normal dudes. One thing that this does throw up is that Taurox primes have a capacity of 10. Maximum size of Scion squads is of course 10. This means that if you max out your Scion squads, you cannot fit the Commissar in a Taurox with them, meaning he must be deployed with the command squad, which is not a good thing because you get no leadership buffs and you might shoot your commander in the head. And I don't want that to happen to any good Tempesta Prime. So I think it's worth going 10-10-9 with your Scion squads if you've got the points. If you don't have the points, then minimizing is still fine. But if you're going to max out, go 10-10-9 so as your Commissar actually has a place he can stay. Because in the command squad, his value is diminished greatly, in my opinion. Surgical deployment. On any turn in which a unit from this formation disembarks from a Taurox Prime, all its ranged weapons have pinning and twin-linked. This is not as good as Splitfire and twin-linked. I mean, twin-linked is great. Twin-linked is the main reason you take this. But pinning is not that good. I mean, against low leadership armies like Orcs, it's brilliant. Because you can pin a 30-man blob without doing that much work. Against Tyranids that are not in Synapse range, I know it does happen every now and again, it could be great. Against armies like Necrons, Tyranids in Synapse range, Tau to an extent, it's dead. It's a dead rule. Even against Marines, it's kind of dead, because normally there'll be Leadership 9, and I believe They Shall Know No Fear has some sort of mitigation with pinning. I could be wrong on that. Feel free to correct me in the comments. So pinning is dead against some armies. Against some, it's amazing. Against some, it's dead, and I'd rather have the split fire when I get out of my Taurox. But alas, I don't. So, is this formation as good as the Airborne Assault formation? No, it's weaker, because you don't get 4 near invulnerable armor 12 transports. You get 3 weaker armor 11 transports, and that's something you have to bear in mind. It is a lot more fragile than the Airborne formation, but it is a lot more versatile. Valkyries have 2 loadouts, anti-tank and anti-infantry. The Taurox has a lot more loadouts. You can go full anti-infantry, full anti-tank, anti-heavy infantry, anti-marine. You have a lot more combinations you can run with this thing, and that makes the formation more versatile. Plus, having the choice to set up or not, again, it's that extra element of versatility this formation gives you. Plus, it's 180 points cheaper baseline, and that's got to count for something in somebody's book. You can still take a Valkyrie and then spam out some upgrades on it, and then have the same cost as your Airborne Assault formation, which is never a bad thing. I mean, that's really good. To have the flexibility of extra points is never a bad thing. Now, is it worth actually taking these formations? I think is the other thing to check. I mean, if you're going to run an army like this anyway, why not? But stipulating taking a Commissar is something that I don't like all that much, because Commissars take up a HQ slot in normal combined arms. So the best ways to get Commissars is via these formations, but you have to spend a metric ton of points to do it. So bear that in mind. Unless you're going to run Unbound, getting enough command squads in your army is hard. In big games, you could take this formation and then 2 more command squads and 2 Scion squads, have 3 Order squads, a Commissar, and be set. And that would be a really good tactic to try. I think that's one of the best ways to run them. But on their own, in a bubble, they're not that amazing, especially if you have to reserve them, because if they turn up late, you lose. Either by forfeiting the game, which I think is still a thing, or by simply having so little momentum when you turn up that you're just not going to turn that game around, in my opinion. And that brings me quite nicely to the end of the Codex. So what do I think of Codex Militarum Tempestus? As an Astra Militarum player, would I ally it? Absolutely. It's a great codex for me to ally with my Imperial Guard. 1, for the narrative, because, well, the narrative makes sense. And 2, to fill in the anti-marine hole that Guard has. Other than taking actual Scions within the Astra Militarum, getting Ep.3 consistently is not all that good. I mean, you have your Lehman Russes, but beyond that, a lot of it is Ep.4. And Scions give you a flexible option for Ep.3. Plus, using Tempestus gives you a different set of orders, which admittedly you can't then combo with Astra Militarum or give Astra Militarum orders to these guys. That does kind of suck. But the new orders are good, and if you want to run the Tempest as a primary detachment, some of the warlord traits are pretty nice. The formations are great to ally in. The Airborne Assault formation, I often think, do I have enough fast attack choice that I want to take a Hellhound, I want to take a Vendetta squadron, but sometimes it's nice to have a good air cavalry wing, and this allows me to do that. Or if I need some fast-moving infantry, a ground assault formation is fantastic. But what about the Codex alone? Does the Codex work on its own? Well, it deals with elite armies, like Marines, pretty well, because it has a lot of Ep.3 firepower. It does not deal with Horde armies at all. It just dies to Horde armies because it just doesn't have enough board presence, and it doesn't have enough masses of firepower. I mean, short-range rapid-fire guns across everybody, and the only way to get a better gun than that is to take your vehicles, which are expensive, is not great. So, yeah, you can have the odd flamer, but nobody runs flamers in Scions because you may as well use that BS4. So I think it really struggles because it just doesn't have the numbers and the overwhelming firepower to deal with Horde armies. Against elite armies with good saves, it stands a decent crack of the whip. But Horde armies, no chance. You need to be getting allies in. Who else could you ally with? Obviously any Imperial force, but Marines will not use it because they are in a small elite force anyway, and they can probably get enough Ep.3. I mean, you might have to take a small detachment, but probably not loads. Sisters, they might see some value, but they sort of cross the line between Marines and Guard, so they could use it. Imperial Knights, you'd want more bodies on the ground to protect your Imperial Knight. And the Inquisition, whilst it's nice and fluffy, doesn't really give you the board presence that the Scions really need to go and win big games. And I think that's the whole point of this codex. It's a good small game book. In big games, it's just not got enough numbers to survive. It will just get run over. And that's probably a good place to leave it. So, thank you for watching this video and for watching this series if you've been following it. Make sure to leave a like rating if you enjoyed it and comment any thoughts, suggestions, tacticas below. I might do a Tempestus Tactica video down the line. We shall see. As far as Codex Analysis goes, the series is of course not going away. It's a staple. And I'm thinking of doing Codex Orcs next, which is going to be a painful trip down memory lane. Because nostalgia's put aside, I'm not that keen on the new Orc Codex. But that will all be explained when we start that series. And Ben may also do Codex Chaos Marines for us pretty soon if we can get a dialogue going between me and him. So, thank you for watching. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis. I hope you've enjoyed this series, and I will see you again.